Hey everybody, I decided to make a video on something that's important to me. Why does Total Warhammer 3 suck? Because Total Warhammer 3 is just, it kind of sucks, and I wanted to give my thoughts on this. Now, I'm not some big editor or anything like that. I'm not going to edit this together. If you want a video about some dude giving his thoughts on a video that hopefully doesn't lag, then here you go. Now, in Total Warhammer 3, let me pull this up for you. I have 67.9 hours in Total Warhammer 3. In Total Warhammer 2, I had 281. In Total Warhammer 1, I had 46 hours. In games like Mount and Blade Bannerlord, I have 120 hours. In Crusader Kings 3, I have 287 hours. In Crusader Kings 2, I had 401 hours. In Europa Universalis, I had 2,906 hours. So that's my point. I play a lot of these sorts of games, and I think I have a pretty good opinion on them, so hopefully you guys actually trust me on this one. So why does Total Warhammer 3 suck? For a variety of reasons, and I've written them on my other monitor, and hopefully this is not lagging too much, and I'm going to go over this. So, first of all, let me hide my camera real quick. I'm on turn 92 of this campaign, and I haven't progressed very far, and there's a reason for that, and I'll go over that in a second. But the reasons Total Warhammer 3 sucks is the map sucks. Now, let me go over Total Warhammer 3 for those of you guys who might not know this game or anything like that. So you've got a map, and this is the entire map. I'll show you more of it in a second. And you have armies. You make your armies up. You have heroes. I don't know. I want to write one thing down here that I just remembered. You can see squad makeup, things like that, etc. You move around with your armies. Then once you meet an opposing army or you find a settlement or something like that, once you do that, you go in and you play a real-time strategy battle, blah, 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 blah. Okay, does everybody get that? So, why does the map sucking have to do a lot with that? Now, I've downloaded a mod. I didn't use any mods in this run, but I wanted to get a Toggle Fog of War mod. Now, the highlighted colors are the major players or factions that I've seen. Now, you can see the Toggle Fog of War is a bit buggy. So these green people, they're not a major faction. They're just a faction that I saw. At any rate, outside of the factions directly around me, I'm the gray people here, all of these are the major factions. Now, do you see an issue here? Do you see, this should be very obvious to everyone, but do you see the problem here? The major factions, which are, okay, I'll just go over them for those of you guys who don't know. They're the ogres in the lower left, me as, I'll call myself West Kiselev here, blue is East Kiselev here, this is the demons of Khorne, this is the demons of Slanesh, these are the demons of Nurgle, Tzeentch died, but they would otherwise be over here. Here is, a female dragon, here's male dragon. Here, he's not highlighted for some reason, but here are the ogres with this little ogre symbol. Here's the ogres. But do you see the issue? The factions that are actually interesting to fight, not just the throwaway factions. Like these red people, these are just throwaway dwarves. They are very weak. They don't have a strong legendary lord. Legendary lords are people like this. They're extremely powerful heroes, giving these crazy effects. Here's his Supreme Patriarch. He gives frenzy to his entire army. I have a faction bonus here, the Cultists of Ursun. So these people don't have these bonuses. So these throwaway factions that aren't led by a legendary lord, that aren't the major players, they get destroyed very easily. They're kind of just throwaway factions. The map sucks because the legendary lords this map is just too big for how many legendary lords are here. And this continues, by the way. This continues a lot. You'll see why this gets even worse. And you can see Cathay is up here, and maybe Cathay has to fight the ogres eventually. They could ally them, but Cathay has to fight Tzeentch, and if Tzeentch dies, where Tzeentch did die, they're done. Their campaign is basically done. Then they just sit here, do the Realms of Chaos, which I'll go into in a second, and they're done. And that's so boring. I could win this campaign sitting here and doing nothing. Now, I'll go into some actual details right here. If you look right here, you see Skaven. Now, why is the Hell Pit even on this map? Now, I understand literally this map is the Warhammer Fantasy map. So on the Warhammer Fantasy map, there would be a Hell Pit location. There would be, I forget this dude's name. He would be here. But the thing is, think about this from a gameplay standpoint. These are Skaven. These are Ratmen. Unfortunately, the Hell Pit is infested with Skaven corruption, and you can see it's got a +5 from local populace. It is nearly impossible for anyone else to walk into Hell Pit, burn it down, conquer it, and take it over. They would have to sit there and put down rebellion after rebellion after rebellion, building up defenses, building up anti-corruption, and if you're playing on a hard enough difficulty, it would still rebel. So the best thing to do about the Hell Pit is nothing. You literally do nothing. They're a waste of time. Why were they put on the map? The correct play is to do nothing. Now, I'm going to talk about every location that just makes no sense to me. All of this is the Human Empire. Now, they were a big deal in Total Warhammer 1. They were a big deal in Total Warhammer 2. Not in the first campaign map, but in the second campaign map. On this one, they literally serve no purpose other than to die. Now, I get it. You want humans to have fight diversity, which I'll go into later. But the thing is, they take up so much of the map. They don't have a legendary lord. All you're going to do, if I decided to conquer this land, which would be good land to conquer, if I decided to conquer it, all I would be doing is running through shitty humans that can't really fight back because they don't have the legendary lord bonuses. They don't have the faction bonuses. They're just generic throwaway factions. So I could literally quadruple my land by just running through here and conquering all these people. But it wouldn't be fun because they're not challenging, because they don't do anything. Now, I'm sure there is a power fantasy. I'm sure there are people out there who want to destroy people like that. I get it. Down here in the lower right, they're mostly dead right now, but we have the vampires. Now, the vampires fight the humans, and that's how the map works in Total Warhammer 1 and 2. And you can see, I mean, look at how many human factions there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, why? Right? And then we got the Wood Elves over here, but once again, the Wood Elves, they own this forest, but it's going to be very difficult to run this forest because here's the thing, it's an uninhabitable climate, magical forest. So once again, like with the Hell Pit, we have another location, and by the way, the Hell Pit is a wasteland, so that is unpleasant to my people. So it would suck even harder. It would get a 15% income penalty. So even if I went through all the ass bothery to conquer it, it wouldn't do anything. And then here we have a magical forest, which Kiselev hates, which income minus 50% if I conquer this. Once again, what is the purpose? They won't attack me. They had to go back and patch it so they stopped attacking the demons because they would just run up here and attack the demons constantly, which is really weird. But do you see how this area of the map has players? This area of the map actually does have players. Yes, this is the Demons of Chaos, which are a faction. So Demons of Chaos are here, Kiselev here, Kiselev here, there's an ogre here, but look at how much land is wasted. There is so much time, there is so much shit you have to do to go and fight any other faction that's a challenge. Now it gets worse. When we start going off from Kiselev, let's look at this giant peninsula. This entire thing is run by two factions, Khorne and Slaanesh. And all they will be doing, all the AI will be doing is Slaanesh will be conquering all of this, and Khorne will be conquering all of this. Now, I'm on turn 92, and even the AI, which has difficulty bonuses, is struggling to conquer through all this land to actually start fighting, challenging opponents, to actually start doing anything. We have Nurgle over here, and Nurgle sucks. And we can see Nurgle and Khorne are running to me because there's anti-player bias, which is real. It's actually a thing. It's not just me being salty. They're running at me, but Nurgle could barely conquer anything. He managed to take his starting province, and he got half of his second province, and that's it. That's all he managed to do. All of this is uninhabited. There's not a single legendary lord in all of it. Guys, I'm not joking. This is like a good 1/5 of the map over here with nobody in it. There are no legendary lords. You can eventually unlock a legendary lord that you, the human, can play as. Boris, I think he spawns right here, right? But Boris won't spawn as an AI. So this entire area is useless throwaway factions. Then we get over here, and you can see the ogre guys. For some reason they're not highlighted, but they conquered a good chunk of the mountains, but they didn't manage to conquer all of this of the mountains. So all of this is still generic throwaway AI. All of it. Like, and then this is Tzeentch. And now you can make the argument that, oh, well, Tzeentch is supposed... Tzeentch most of the time loses to the dragons. These are the China dragon faction. Most of the time he loses. I've never seen him die, but in this run he died. Tzeentch will often take all of this stuff, and then sometimes he'll come down here. Oh, actually, there is Tzeentch. This is Tzeentch. Okay, so Tzeentch managed to get down here. He just died from up here. So Tzeentch is down here, but all of this is still useless throwaway factions. The only area that gets primarily settled is Cathay. But again, this is Cathay, and it's put between the two legendary lords of Cathay, the two factions of Cathay, and they sit here and they do nothing. So, from the standpoint of a map where you want the player to be fighting as many different factions, as many different challenging factions as possible, it has utterly and completely failed. Let's move on to the next thing. Realm of Chaos. I'm going to turn on Fog of War here. Now, I'm going to zoom in, and all of you have played this game are going to roll your eyes, and you're going to know why. The Realms of Chaos spawn portals in your land, and you can see right here, every single one of these is a demon hero running through my land, corrupting my land. Can we see this? Yeah. So they are trying to corrupt my land and shit like that. And I've had to stack the shit out of these anti-corruption buildings on everywhere. And there's just so many of these heroes. And they run around and they fuck with you. And the thing is, they'll normally open portals. Now, here's the thing. In order to keep this interesting, what the developers have done is they realized this map sucks. You don't get to fight enough people. So what they did, and I shit you not, is these portals open every 25 turns. Or maybe it's every 30, I don't know. And the thing is, you can build buildings to stop them, but I'll get into that in a second. Once you settle a province and you build these buildings to stop these portals, they'll stop. But until then, it will keep spawning portals. Now, these portals will start spawning generic demon armies from the 4 demon factions, right? Now, not part of the actual, so there's like the Khorne demons, but this is the actual Khorne legendary lord faction. Does everybody get that? Okay, so this one will spawn, who is that? Slaanesh. It'll spawn generic Slaaneshi demons that'll run through and attack everybody. Not only is the AI, and we can see this, not only is the AI really bad at stopping portals from spawning, meaning that the AI expansion gets stomped really hard and they don't move, but in the early game, what can frequently happen is these demon heroes will run through and they'll spawn out of the portals, and these guys, they're not an army. I would need to spawn my own demon, hero-killing unit, and I would have to spawn him, and instead of having an army that can fight these guys, and I've had to fight these demons for a billion zillion turns, I would have to build a hero, and then I'd have to put them on the map, and I'd have to run and kill these heroes who are running around, debuffing my land, fucking with my people, doing all that shit. This sucks. So what do you do then? What is the purpose behind this Realm of Chaos? Well, let me explain this to you. Because they realized the map sucks, this sucks, they made it a mechanic where you enter the portals. And this is how you win the campaign, right? This is how you do the story, if you want to call it that. You're not supposed to conquer the map like in literally every other Total War game named Total War for being known for their Total War. You're not supposed to conquer the map. You're supposed to conquer about as much land as I do, and then what do? You enter the portals, which, by the way, spawn frequently, spawning units, spawning armies that are just really annoying because you have to run around, and then you have to waste building slots, which I'll get into again. You have to waste building slots, building these things to make it so portals don't spawn, which sucks because you only have a few building slots. And then you go to the Realms of Chaos. Now, apparently, Fog of War doesn't actually show the Realms of Chaos over here, but you go to these areas, totally unrelated. There are 4 areas over here, and you can kind of see there's like 4-ish. It's not perfect, but you go to these areas and you fight Nurgle and Slaanesh and Tzeentch and Khorne, and you take all 4 of the souls, and then you have one big battle at the end. Let me explain this to you. Now, normally, my army goes, and this army would go and it would fight another army, right? Now, often, you will take 2 or even 3 armies in a stack, depending on if you want to go with high-quality units or low-quality units. And low-quality units right now are a bit overpowered, and I'll go into that in a second. But the general idea is simple, right? You take your army, their army fights, you spawn on a map, you deploy all your units, and you hammer into each other. For some reason, what they decided to do is when you enter the Realm of Chaos, you take one of your armies, so it has to be your Legendary Lord army, and you enter the realm of chaos fight at the end of the realm. And I'm not showing it, but these realms fucking suck to move through. You constantly get attrition. You have to take non-stop shit battles fighting shit armies that are worthless, where you just do the same goddamn deployment again and again. And finally you get to the end of it, and what do? Do you get a good major 20v20 final battle with an unstoppable demon lord? No, you don't, actually. What you do is a wave defense minigame where you use your army and you have to do wave. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. You randomly have to do a wave defense with a single army. Now, remember what I said earlier, that you might have a lot of armies of low quality units or one army of a high quality unit? Well, no matter what, you need one army of the highest quality possible, because you can only send one army led by your legendary lord into the demon realm, kind of making it so your choices, your strategies are heavily slanted towards having high quality, at the very least one super mega high quality army of only the highest quality units, right? But then you randomly have to do this wave defense minigame where you build towers and you build walls. And look, I'm saying that's fine. I get it, like they wanted to diversify stuff. Here's the problem. It sucks to play. It is not fun at all. It's legitimately unfun, and I dislike it a lot. It is no fun. Go Google, look up gameplay of it. It has nothing to do with this, which would be fine if it didn't suck to play. It's actually unfun. I don't have any fun with it. And the issue is that seemingly, rather than playtesting it and seeing, oh, this is unfun, oh man, I don't like this at all. And I did turn down my quality to make sure, and hopefully it does not lag that much. Hopefully. I don't know if it will. Rather than playtest it and see, oh, this is kind of interesting, but it's not really that fun, they hard force it on you. You need to do it 5 fucking times. You need to do all 4 realms of chaos wave defense, then you need to do the final wave defense battle, and then you win the campaign. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably, your mind isn't quite working this out. Yes, you do giant 20v20 field battles, or 40v40, or 30v30, depending on how many troops are nearby, stuff like that. If you have any cities, they can be a city defense, but I'm talking an actual wave defense, where it spawns waves of enemies that run at your defenses, your towers. They run at you and die, and then they run at you and die. And not only does this blatantly favor spamming so much range that you can annihilate them, but it just kind of really unfavors using even armies at all. If you just use a bunch of single entity monster units, and I don't know if I have any in my armies here, but if you use a bunch of heroes and legendary lords and giant bears and stuff like that. So instead of armies, you can see here, there's 90 units in this Streltsy. There's 90 units in these armored Cossards. There's 60 units in these Griffin Legion. Instead, you could have one giant bear, one giant ice bear. And if you just spam a bunch of these single entity monsters, the wave defense becomes way easier because you don't have as many units to manage. You can just heal them. It becomes way easier. And that also helps destroy diversity. So let me go into something else. And I was talking about this earlier. I'm going to go into the technology because what they recently did in one of the recent patches is technologies were really, really bad. So they buffed them all. Here's the problem. Is that the people who designed the game, the people who developed this game, don't understand that you can't just power creep the shit out of ranged units forever. You can't just do that. It's stupid. So let's talk about some of the technologies they've given Kiselev. Now, Kiselev is a hybrid ranged melee faction. Okay, so in fact, let me show you some of their units, just to be sure. And here's like your building tree. So early game, you have early game light cavalry, spearmen who also have bows. Armored Cossars are shielded. They got a shield. That's great weapons ones. Okay, so armored Cossars, they have a shield. They have good armor, not great armor, but good armor. They've got pistols that they shoot. So right, they got some good stuff. Streltsy are units with rifles that are also axes. So their thing is they're ranged and melee. They also have winged lancers because they're kind of the Slav faction. They've got Griffin Legion, which are like the super winged lancers. They've got the Zargard, who are good melee units. Here we have the Ice Guards. Now, the Ice Guards are basically the advanced Cossars. They have bows, and their bows have long range, and they slow people, but they're also good in melee. They've got Warbears. So you get the general idea, right? They're not only one thing or another. They've got shock cavalry, but at the same time, I've also got ranged units. But at the same time, the ranged units can also melee. Then they have pure melee units, which are mostly there to be tanky and hold the line. And, you know, they've got bear cavalry, because meme. You know, so they have a good diversity. So when you go into their technology, you'd be assuming that you could get a good diversity. But let's look at it. Their best technology, straight up, is 10% more range, 2 more armor piercing, and 10% less reload time for Kiselev units. So, right off the bat, we have a technology. If this technology gave one of these bonuses, it would still be a good technology. If it only gave the range, only gave the reload time, or only gave the armor pen, it would be a good technology. Now, you guys who don't understand this game, you're probably not realizing, hey Shinshin, why is this technology making ranged units so broken? I don't understand. You're telling me that the technologies that they've added have forced you into a range meta? Now, I'll talk about it in a second, but let's go over it. So over here, we can get 3 really good bonuses for ranged units. Over here, we can get the Kossars, Armored Kossar, and the Streltsy, so our early game melee range hybrids, melee defense. Not melee attack, but melee defense. So it's harder to hit them in melee. Then down here, we have breach loaders, giving even more armor piercing damage and reload time to our units. No buffs to their melee damage so far, only buffing how good they shoot people at range. Now, we can see here the bonuses for the other units are pretty not really here. We can see we can get 5% missile resist for only our early game cavalry, not our late game cavalry, only our early game cavalry. 5% missile resist. So you can take 5% less damage from only ranged weapons, or, just as an example, you could get 10% more range, 2 armor piercing, and a 10% faster reload time. Okay, so down here you could get 10 armor for your melee. Wow, 10 armor. Wow, that's incredible. Or, for your, once again, your range units, you could get 3 armor pen and 15% reload time reduction. Boy, it seems like they're blatantly biased towards making your ranged units better. Actually, that is basically what I'm saying here. What they have done is massively overbuff the Kiselev ranged units, while their melee units, in particular their cavalry, that isn't the meme-ass bear cavalry. Now remember, we do have Kossovite dervishes, light cav, horse archers, well, those are obviously horse archers, we have winged lancers, and we have griffin legion. So we have 4 different units of cavalry at every tier up to tier 4. Okay? Despite that, these units get almost no buffs. The biggest buff is a massive 15% more damage for Griffin Legion, and only Griffin Legion, none of your other cavalry, only your late game cavalry. But then over here, we can see that you get more melee defense and reload time when you're under siege, and then you can get 15% more total ammunition for your ranged units. Huh? It gets even worse when you realize you can get another 10% ammunition for Streltsy and 10% more armor pen for Streltsy. Or 15% more damage for only your late game cavalry. Your late game cavalry, which by the way is understat as shit and most people don't really think fondly of. So you can get a minor boost to your late game cavalry. Yeah. Now I'm gonna explain some mechanics for you guys. If I pick this Streltsy and let's pick this Armored Kossar. Now when I look at the damage of this Armored Kossar, you're seeing 18 missile damage, 12 armor piercing. Armor piercing damage is your true damage, your pure damage, your chaos damage, depending on what kind of game that you play. It is damage that is not reduced by armor. It's armor piercing. Now, the main use of some of these units, for example, Griffin Legion, and you did notice I showed you guys you can get the 10 armor for your Kiselev melee, right? The main use of these units is they have 120 armor. God damn, that's a lot of armor for Griffin Legion. Unfortunately, for some dumbass reason, Kiselev can get a flat +2 armor pen to all their units, and then down here, another flat 3 armor pen. That's 5 armor pen. That means this unit, which would otherwise do 7 armor pen, so it could hurt ranged units slightly, but it wouldn't really do that much damage, is now up to 12 armor pen. That is an insane boost. That means that these early game archers, and this is what I was talking about earlier, I guess they're not archers, these early game ranged units, can now actually deal a decent amount of damage to these late game Griffin Legion. Now, does Griffin Legion get the 5% missile resist? No, actually, this missile resist is only for your early game units. So your late game cavalry that cost a lot barely gets scaled up by technology, but your goddamn early game fucking archers, and let me pull this up. So if I look at my archers, these ones right here, these ones that are unlocked early game go from 3 armor pen to 8. Their amount of damage that they deal to a fully armored Griffin Legion, which is supposed to basically shrug off any non-armor piercing damage, they go from doing 3 damage to them to 8 from technology. Which inevitably means that if you are min-maxing a campaign, you could theoretically spam a shitload of these early game cheap as hell Cossars. Now let me just be clear here. A Griffin Legion has 300 upkeep, a Cossar has 112. So I could have a pack of 40 units, Cossars, running around the map, cheaper than Griffin Legion. But you're saying to yourself, that seems odd. Why would they buff these Cossars so much to where they can hurt late game units? Okay, now look, don't get me wrong. It is fine. I'm absolutely in agreement. Early game units shouldn't become useless. No, they shouldn't. You should always be able to use early game units throughout the entire match. They should be able to fill a spam role. They should be able to do stuff. But the problem here is, have you noticed that my early game melee, or even my mid-game melee, my Zargard, let's get Zargard get. They get leadership, which is literally useless, and 4 melee defense. The 4 melee defense that the ranged units also get. Now, I've looked around my Zargar, which are my mid to late game melee units. I was truly looking around. Oh, and by the way, here's the funniest shit on the planet. Your early game range units and even your late game range units all get 10% missile resist from mess layers. So your early game cavalry get 5% missile resist, or every single ranged unit gets 10% missile resist. Do you see the blatant goddamn bias here for ranged units? Because it's kind of insane. So here's the thing. When I look around, do you notice I can't seem to find any buffs? Nope, I can't find any buffs for my Zargard. Well, that's weird. Nope, there's just nope, that's it, guys. Yep, that's it. Your Zargard, you know, the Zargard, these 2 unit types over here. 1, the regular shielded Zargard. 2, the great weapon Zargard. They take 2 unit slots. They're 2 points on this roster, so you got 4 cavalry and 2 melee units, and what do they get from technology? The entire Zargard can get 4 melee defense. That's it. Once again, by the way, let me look through it. If you look at the Zargard, they are an armored, shielded unit whose main defense against ranged weapons is A, their shield, and B, the fact that they're supposed to have armor and not be whittled away by early game units. But the fact that these early game, hyper early game Cossars can still get 8 armor pen means that these early game units will whittle away at my Zargard, who I can't really find any buffs for them in technology. I don't think there's any actual buffs. It's like they literally didn't design you to actually end up using the Zargard. I literally don't think there's anything beyond this one technology. So Griffin Legion, at least Griffin Legion can get 10 armor, which we've shown isn't that useful, and 15% weapon strength, and that is useful. 15% is pretty good. But on the other hand, Zargard get nothing. So we have a useless technology for cavalry here, which was just totally outdone by this one here. So let's go into this. Unit variety, despite having a lot of different units, there's actually not, because at the end of the day, once you know how to play the game, once you actually know what you're doing, it becomes pretty obvious, unfortunately, that you should just be spamming the units they want you to build. Now, what do they want you to build? They want you to build the Elemental Bear, but it's questionably good for its cost, that is. They want you to build War Bear Riders. They want you to spam the ever-living shit out of Ice Guard. They want you to spam their early game archers. They don't really want you to use any of the cavalry, unfortunately, and I'll get into that in 1 second too. They don't really want you to use the Tsar Guard, which is weird because the faction I'm playing, the Cultist of Ursun, with the legendary lord, where are you at, buddy? Castellan. He's a melee. You have, remember when I mentioned Kiselev? This right side of Kiselev is ranged Kiselev. This left side is supposed to be the more melee focused of Kiselev. And I'm not going to go into the whole Castellan thing, but you can clearly see the melee focus didn't get any attention. They didn't get any attention at all, actually. We can see Ice Guard can get another 10% ammo here. I mean, there's so many buffs to the late game Ice Guard, who are the ranged late game units. There's so many buffs to them, I literally can't keep up with them. I mean, there's just so many, and they're just everywhere, right? But, I mean, just this one technology here, Pirate's Weapons. 10% more range, 10% reload time, which translates roughly into 10% more damage, but there's some funkiness with that. And 2 armor piercing, which can often translate into a near 50% damage increase. In fact, often it will be a 50% damage increase if they're hitting ranged or high armor units. Those guys, they get huge buffs. These Streltsy, these armor, they get huge buffs. Griffin Legion, not so much. The only Zargar worth using is the special one Zargard, the Das Hearthblades, and a lot of people say you shouldn't even use them. You can only get this one special name Zargard. You can get one in your entire army everywhere. In the entire map, you can only have one of them. And even then, they get so little buffs from technology, they get so little anything, that even then, people are like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be using them, right? Now, let's talk about Shock Cav, because Shock Cav has reached a critical issue, in my opinion, in Total Warhammer 3. Now, Shock Cav are cavalry that are meant to charge in and hit their enemies, right? The problem is Shock Cav is so absurdly understat to the point where I don't think they can basically ever be useful, unfortunately. Let me look up the buffed up stats. These are the buffed up stats of my Kossars. 38 melee attack, 30 melee defense. Now, for those of you who don't know, you compare melee attack to melee defense, and that's how likely it is you are to hit in melee. Now, let's look up these Kosovo dervishes. 28 melee attack to 24 melee defense. Now, these guys have 6,300 HP in total. These guys have 5,600. Huh. So actually, and people will frequently realize this, if you charge Kosovite dervishes, and remember they're on horses, so they're bigger, so when they charge in, they'll frequently be having to fight 1v2 because there'll be 2 infantry models fighting 1 cavalry model. It's not like all 60 are all fighting all 90. It'll be more like 30 maybe of the cavalry are fighting 45 to 50 of the infantry. And even then, because of the technology bonuses, like hooked blades, because of the technology bonuses, these tier 1 infantry that are actually a ranged unit will actually beat the dervishes in melee. In addition to the fact that the Kossars get to shoot them at range. It gets worse, because you can build Kossars with spears for slightly more upkeep, and with spears, they get a 15 bonus versus large. That's 15 more melee attack and 10 more damage. So that would be 35 melee attack, 34 defense with 40 damage against 28, 24, 28. In other words, these Kossars with spears would straight beat the cavalry in melee while also being a ranged unit. Don't even get me into this. The armored Kossars, they're shorter ranged, they have a pistol, they do more damage, but they have less ammo, but they fight much better in melee. These guys will beat everything, they'll beat everything in melee. I believe they will actually beat the Winged Lancers in melee. I'd have to look this up, 32, 42, Yeah, the Winged Lancers with their absurdly goddamn low melee attack and melee defense of 26 and 26, these Shock Cav are horrifically bad. They're actually so bad, it's comical. For some reason, Paradox can't seem to put the math together. When you understat Cavalry this bad, it doesn't really matter. Oh, but you have to cycle charge. You need to charge in, then back out, then charge. How often does that really actually work? And how often does that really play out in a game? Basically never. That basically never actually works. Unfortunately, while the Winged Lancers will initially get the advantage and be able to charge the armored Cassars, while they'll be able to charge in and do more damage in the initial engagement, what will frequently happen, as in will always happen, the Cassars will then be able to have more models fighting in melee, and because their stats, through technology and stuff like that, they have nearly 20 more melee defense. That's absurd. These Winged Lancers will get shit on. Now, are they fast? I mean, they do have 84 speed, which is, you know, it's high, but it's not great. They only have 30 weapon strength, though. Remember, these models, they only have 60 models, and they're big, so they don't get to fight that many. At a mere 30 weapon strength, compared to the armored Cassars, what are they up to? 32. That means the armored Cassars, who have a goddamn pistol and a giant shield, these units will straight up beat the Winged Lancers. Now, you can make the argument that the Winged Lancers are supposed to go around the back and they're supposed to hit weak archers. Which weak archers? And how do you manage that? And let's mention these Winged Lancers, once again, these Winged Lancers, they nearly cost twice as much to upkeep as a generic Cassars with spears. The Cassars with spears, who will stand a pretty goddamn good chance of beating the Winged Lancers, cost half as much to upkeep. And remember, they gave him a shitload of armor piercing. I'm a bit ranting right now, but this is for a point. They don't understand that Shock Cav just isn't good. The only Shock Cav which gets decent are the Griffin Legion. And that's because they have so much armor, they basically take no non-armor piercing damage. You can get them 15% more attack damage, so they can get up to 44, so it's pretty good. They're not super fast at 75. They've got a decent charge bonus of 72, so Griffin Legion can do okay. They've also got good charge animations where they can hit multiple units on the charge. I'm not going to go into that. But do you see the problem here? Do you see how it seems so much easier to just spam ranged units? And do you see how all the technology spams ranged units? And really, when you break it down, every single time you play Kiselev, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be spamming the early game range units, and then eventually you'll make one big stack of the late game ranged units, supported by multiple stacks of the early game ranged units, which you can do very easily because you can buff up their damage so much. You'll never have a run where you could do Zargard, because you just can't get any buffs to your Zargard. You literally have the one buff to Zargard. Like, I'm going crazy because I truly, I'm like looking around. I'm like, surely I've forgotten something. No? Surely there must be one extra buff for Zargard. Surely Griffin Legion and the Winged Azars are mentioned and they get the 5% missile resist. No. Surely. No. No, they don't. Your goddamn melee units that are also ranged get more range damage reduction and therefore are better against range units than your cavalry. Your cavalry is worse. Now, you can get recruit rank for infantry and cavalry, which is questionably useful, but that's pretty late in the game and not really that great. And that's it. That's why the unit variety sucks. But now let's talk about, I want to talk about one last thing before I'm done here, okay? I want to talk about one last thing. There is something that I really like to do, and in order to even talk about this, I can't even show you as Kiselev. I call this the Lord of the Rings. For those of you who know, this game actually has a full gear system. You have a armor slot, a weapon slot, a talisman, an enchanted item. If you are a caster, you have an arcane item. And you can see here you have these ancillaries, which are kind of like units that can buff and stuff like that. So you can see here, that you can kind of get like cool upgrades. You can level up your units and get them a bunch of stats and cool stuff like that. And one of the things that I like doing is having a let's call it Lord of the Rings playthrough, even where you don't load up like 20 heroes, but let's say you have 5 heroes. Let's say a faction is like 5 different heroes. Now you have the lords who lead the army, and then you have heroes who are within the army. Kiselev's heroes, and I'll show you them right here, they only have 2, the Patriarch and the Frost Maiden. Are you noticing an issue here? They don't actually have any melee warriors. The best you can do is a Patriarch on a bear. That means as the game progresses, you can't really have, and like this is Peter Ursanov, right? And the thing is, I don't really care, because what does a Patriarch do? They're a buff unit. They sit on their warbear, and sure, they can do kind of sort of a decent amount of damage, but I mean, these stats are pretty goddamn low, not gonna lie. So in reality, and if I load up Castellan here, this thing of having the cool armor, the weapons, and you could put that on your other people, and then you could put them in your melee units. And yeah, the Patriarchs can buff your melee units. I'll give them that. You know, no doubt by that regard, right? So, what is my point here? I'm going to have to load up an Ogre campaign that I was running. Hopefully it actually loads. I'm going to have to load up this Ogre campaign to show you what I mean, because currently only one of the factions in the game actually has enough hero units to actually sort of make a hero squad, to put armor and weapons on your heroes and actually have an interesting mid to late game. In, let's say, Warhammer 2, if you're playing Empire, you would have the Empire captains who could buff up your melee units. Maybe you'd have 2 of them. They would give aura buffs so your melee could stay relevant in the late game. They didn't, but, you know, hypothetically they could have. Hypothetically, right? So, you know, you could give them good armor, good weapons, blah, 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 right? And I can show you this on Ogres, if this hopefully loads. Hopefully it loads. I mean, we can only hope, right? But no other factions really have that. Very few factions even have melee damage dealers, and those are the most fun types of heroes to use, are the melee damage dealers. So okay, so here's my Ogre campaign, and I got to turn 141. So I got Grecius Goldtooth, who, by the way, it sucks that the Ogres are really fun to use, and both of their legendary lords are comic relief. That sucks, I hate it, but whatever. So then we have the Hunter. We can see here, you know, I got him all leveled up. He's level 40. He's got a cool weapon. I give him a cool weapon. He causes fear and terror. The Helm of Discord. He can give a giant AoE debuff to his enemies. Ogres even have this cool thing where you can give them unique names that give them different buffs. You know, then I've got my Butcher Gundred Halfling Chewer, right? So we got Brawler Guts Gutblout, Grecius Goldtooth, Gundrun Halfling Chewer. This is my Tyrant for my other army. Bone Chewer, Girth Gritbreaker. I've got my Fire Shaman, Dodluck. I've got Golf. I've got my other Tyrant, Mountain Eater, Gondra. Like, this is cool, right? Like, people like this. I like getting these people and gearing them up. And you can see here, I got my Hunter. And what does my Hunter do? He's actually got cool abilities. He's got Crippling Throw. He's got a unique ability here, Loner, which I can't find it. It's here somewhere, where he gets bonus movement speed when he's not near any allies. So he can run around and throw his spear and take out big targets, right? That's cool. People like having these hero squads, and I've got multiple armies. If I could find, I don't even remember my other armies are. Okay, so here's an army that was just fighting a bunch of tough battles, right? And they've got Gendril, the shaman, and they've got who is this guy? Smash Gutter, the butcher, so he casts heals and stuff. And then we got Mountaineer Gondred, the tyrant, and he's really good at fighting. You can see, as compared to those shit-ass patriarchs, the tyrant is a goddamn giga-chad of giga-chads. This dude would beat up a patriarch riding a bear like it was nothing. This guy would absolutely massacre him. And that's cool, and people like that, and it's fun to use. You can see my Butcher, the Great Maw. He's got skill trees, and this is something that's cool. You can see, look at this Slaughterer. So you can get one of these bonuses on your range units. So he could get regeneration, or he could get cooldown reduction to his spells, or he could give your entire army more leadership, or he could get poison, or he could get weapon strength. That's cool. He's got spells, he's got healing, you know. That's interesting stuff. Now you compare that to, let's say, Kiselev. You can have an Ice Witch with cast spells. So already the Ice Witch is less interesting than the Butcher, because the Butcher is a cool melee unit who can also cast spells. Now I'm not saying spellcasters are boring, but you know, like, can you really, like, get a spell? Like, what is she, you know, like, So, yeah, that's it. I think that about finishes every campaign. I'm not sure how badly this whole thing lagged. Hopefully not too much, and you guys can enjoy it. But that, in my opinion, this is my long-ass, ranty video. This is why this game, I love this game. I like playing it. I hate it. It sucks. I wish it was better. And I think that's what most people think. I really, actually wish this game was better. Yeah. So, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. I hope you guys at least were entertained a little bit by this video. So, thank you everybody, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.